Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
It's Callista and Stephanie back with another Thread Talk.
Yeah, that's right. We will first want to say thank you so much for joining in today. I know that we experienced some technical difficulties
Yes.
with the streaming platform yesterday, but we did a little bit of a test before, and we've been online for a while, so hopefully everything runs smoothly today. And just a quick note, we have Roanne who's behind camera, and she'll be more than happy to be like providing some links or replying to some of your comments as well. So if you hear us referring to anyone, that's just Roanne in the back who's kind of helping us out over there.
Exactly. So yes, like Stephanie said, we're so sorry that there was an outage yesterday causing us to have to delay the Thread Talk to today, but I think a lot of people were interested in what we're going to be talking about today because we got a lot of messages when the talk wasn't happening on time. So we really appreciate the interest, and we're excited to talk to everyone today about just like the topic of applique in general, and then kind of like talking about some products that we think are fantastic if you are an appliquer, or maybe you don't like applique and are looking for like products that will make you maybe tolerate or even like applique a little bit more, and some threads, of course, that go really well with applique.
Yeah, I think something that's actually quite interesting about this specific technique is there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, and everyone has their own preference for sure, but hopefully with our demos today and some of the tools that we're going to share with you, it seems a lot more approachable, or maybe you'll notice that it cuts down on a few steps here and there. So yeah, we have tons to cover, not just applique, but how we can actually even use these tools to help make other processes or other techniques simpler as well.
Exactly. So with applique, it's kind of a fun technique if you haven't done it before, because it opens up a lot of possibilities that might not be possible if you just stick with piecing, right? Because there's only so much you can do with how you piece a block together. But when you applique, you can really put really any shape that you want wherever you want on your surface. So it allows you to have more freedom to design a little bit differently.
Yeah, exactly. You can gain a little bit more precision depending on like what the design might be. So if you have seen like applique on quilts before, sometimes you might see like a stem or a vine, even things like that can be quite challenging to piece. Not impossible, but it's just a little bit different, I would say. But with applique, you can get those like really precise curves and things like that. And you can decide as well whether you want to do it by hand, by machine, if you want it to be more like decorative applique, or you want it to really look like something that's like blended in. And even so, thread choice becomes like a pretty important player in this too.
Exactly. So to get started today, let's talk about our product here, Instant Appliqué. So we did a live, I think, a few months back, where we kind of covered all of our different wonderful creative mediums, and it's like a new line of products for us, which help you guys sew a little easier, do certain projects better with like some of these new tools. And Instant Appliqué is one of them. But we're going to deep dive into this and also its companion product, which is the Appliqué Transfer Sheet, and show you guys how you can make applique, whether you're doing needle turn or if you're doing raw edge, just a little bit easier. And actually applique embroidery as well. So there's actually a whole bunch of ways for how to use this product that we're going to get into. Exactly. So just to recap on what the Instant Appliqué is and how it works is, when you open the product, you are going to find a tube like this inside, and one side is coated with wax paper, and the other side is going to already have your Instant Appliqué, like this stickier surface, and it just kind of like sticks onto the other wax paper because it's in a roll. So when you unroll it a little bit, you'll already expose one side of the Instant Appliqué. And what Instant Appliqué is, it's a double-sided, ultra lightweight and water soluble non-woven sheeting, and so when you use it, it's kind of like a double-sided sticker.
Yeah,
in a way.
Those were like a lot of words, but what Calista said, what it comes down to, it's actually sticky on both sides.
Yes, that's right.
And then it disappears after you wash it.
Yes. So it's completely water soluble. So after you use this in your project and you give your project a wash, or even like a spritz sometimes, it will dissolve this layer of Instant Appliqué. So this is kind of how it looks like. I just peeled a little bit up. You can see it's very thin and it's sticky on both sides. So I think of like the easiest way to think about it is really like a double-sided tape. Yeah, because like it makes it really straightforward and like how you can use it in any application. And the great thing is it washes out completely. I think that's like the huge bonus here.
Oh yeah, it's definitely like a really great thing, because I think like if you are like an experienced appliquer, or if you've like played around with a whole bunch of different applique techniques, sometimes you'll notice that when you, in order to achieve like the shape like very accurately, you'll have to sometimes fuse something permanently to the back of your fabric so that you can cut it with some stability, and get those like corners and round edges and stuff like that. But then you're left with something that's permanently in your quilt. So maybe that might not be an issue, but if you're like layering things
I was
together,
gonna say that. You got it.
You can go on.
No. Okay.
Yeah, if you're like especially layering things, or if there's a lot of applique on the quilt, sometimes it can get a little bit heavy or a little bit hard to sew through, and then you'll even have to like plan your quilting around where you might have some like extra stabilizer or some sort of thing that's permanently in your quilt, just because like the needle or something can't go through all those layers. But the nice thing again is once you wash this out, all you're left is with your layers of fabric, which is another added bonus to keep everything really like flat and accurate.
Exactly. Today's thread talk is going to be fun because we're actually going to be doing some live demos, which we don't always do, but we're actually going to do some live demos today because we think that's going to be the best way for you guys to kind of like understand and really see how the product works. So please stick around so you can like see how we're doing everything. So first off, before we get into like the demo, the next thing I want to talk about is the Appliqué Transfer Sheet. And so this, like I said, is the companion product of the Instant Appliqué. And I have a sheet here just so you can see what it is inside. It is pretty much a very similar material to this wax paper that is on the outside of the Instant Appliqué roll. And so it doesn't have any Instant Appliqué on it. It's just the transfer sheet. But what's great about this is it will seal off the other side of the Instant Appliqué. So when you like unroll it, when you stick this onto it, it kind of like seals both sides of the Instant Appliqué, so you can transfer your designs more easily, because with this sheet of paper, you can actually run this through your printer. We advise doing it one sheet at a time, but you can run this through your printer. You can trace on it, you can draw on it, and then you can attach it to the Instant Appliqué so you can cut out your shape very precisely. So I think now we'll show a little demo of like how to kind of like put both of those pieces together.
Sure.
So we're going to switch to our Wonder Cam setting here. So let's just hop over to that.
Okay. There we go.
So let me take Sorry there. I think we lost the sound, but we're going to Let me get this. Oh, can you guys let us know if you can still hear the sound? Oh, are we still on no sound?
How can they answer the question?
Lost sound. Okay.
Okay. We'll just add both of us to the stage.
Okay.
There we go.
We're
I think that should be
okay. I'm sorry about that. When we switch cameras, we
can hold this up.
we
to show
lost the
height of
sound.
it.
But this is the maybe we can do something. Nope, like this. Sorry, we're just trying to figure out how to make this the. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think we can see both, and we can see a larger screen here now. So this is what I was trying to show is the roll of Instant Appliqué. If you can unroll this for me, Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
The sheet of the paper is actually the same length.
Here.
Oh, we're a little zoomed
Here,
in.
just hold it up, maybe,
Yeah.
and we can show that.
It's the same height as the roll. So if you want to put the whole sheet on there, you can. In this example, I already pre-cut some shapes. So I'm just going to stick the shapes onto the roll of Instant Appliqué.
Yeah, and another thing to add about the Instant Appliqué is it is like letter size, so 8.5 by 11. So the shapes that you see here, we've actually printed from directly through the printer. So you can trace, you can draw, or you can even just print onto the Appliqué transfer sheet. Whatever is the most easy method for you.
And now I'm just going to take some scissors and say I just want to get the apple out for now. I'll just cut out the
right here.
I'll just cut out the apple. So now I have this apple shape, or it's kind of a rough apple shape, and I can do two things. I can either create a needle turn applique, or I can do a raw edge applique. So we'll show a raw edge applique first.
Yes.
So if you're going to do a raw edge applique, you don't need to pre-cut the apple to its exact size. You can just go to your next step, which is putting it on the fabric. Now, if your pattern has a direction to it, you want to make sure you print or trace your drawing in a mirrored image. Okay. So
make sure it's nice and flat and stuck. So sometimes we like to just make sure that everything is nice and flush. You don't get any bubbles.
And then you want to peel it from the other side, actually.
Yes. So the reason why we peel it from the back side is so that you're left with your outline.
So you can see exactly
where you need to cut.
Okay. So you have this, and then you want to place it. Oh, let me center that.
No,
oh, other
closer
way
to us. Yeah, there we go.
You want to place this onto your fabric here. Okay, so when I cut it out, the apple will be the right direction on the front side, or on the right side of the fabric. So I will just give this a cut here.
Yeah, and we found that if you're wanting to trace it out by hand or draw by hand, a permanent marker, like if you have a fine tip Sharpie, that works perfectly fine and it won't smudge around on your work either. And the nice thing too is the Appliqué Transfer Sheet is actually fairly translucent. Like if you put it on a light box, or even if your thing that you're tracing has fairly dark lines, you may not even need a light box. You'll be able to see the lines pretty clearly to get that nice accurate shape. So you can see Callista's able to really get into these areas with a good amount of precision. Oops. There we go. There we go.
This little thread. So now you can see I've perfectly cut out this apple shape, and the applique transfer sheet is still on the back side of this. So if I want to take my background fabric now, I'm going to just get this black piece of fabric here.
Oh, we'll let it kind of adjust
To
the
lighting.
Sometimes, yeah. Let's put a pair of scissors and see if that helps. Sorry,
Maybe
sometimes
a spool of thread.
Black point a little bit better. I think once you put the apple on, it'll help. Yeah,
okay,
there we go.
So now what I want to do, now that I'm ready to place my apple, is I want to peel off the applique transfer sheet. And you can kind of see this layer of the instant applique on the back of the apple. So I'm going to peel it off. And I want to stick this onto my fabric. Say this is where I want it positioned. So I'm just going to stick it down, give it a good, just press with my hand. And you can see, I'm going to try to shake it on the camera, but you can see it's very stuck down. It's very secure now.
Yeah, I'm going to put that just the right way so you can see. I'm just going to put my hands here. Hopefully you got a better image of what that pink looks like.
So now if you just want to do your stitching on the machine for the raw edge applique, it's very easy to do so. And it was super easy to just like cut out a shape exactly like precisely where we needed the lines to be. And then it's like stuck perfectly. And we didn't have to iron or kind of like do anything else fancy. Like it's as easy as that. And once you stitch it and you give this project a wash, that layer of the instant applique will go away. Now, say you add additional layers or something like that.
If you're making like a collage quilt too, right? Sometimes there's lots of layers going on.
Yeah, like you can just add any other, you know, this also has some instant applique on the back. This is like a pre-cut piece, but it's very easy to just like also put it on, stick it on, or if you have like multiple layers, you can like layer all of that very easily. So if you do like collage quilts as well, this product could be something very helpful for you.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, this is more like a temporary hold. So if you have it stuck on, it is important that you do just like a little bit of stitching to hold everything down. And I think another thing that we should mention too is because it's a temporary hold, let's say you put it in the wrong spot, you can always lift it up gently like so and put it into a different spot, and it's still sticky, as you can see right there. So we can put it down again. Does it make your piece stiffer? So that's a really nice question. I would say it doesn't make your piece stiffer because once you stitch it down and you rinse it out, it's going to be as soft and as flexible as two pieces of fabric. While the instant applique is in, it's actually fairly malleable itself.
Yeah.
Because like what Calista said earlier, it is really lightweight. So I'm just going to show you and show you how it kind of bends and moves. And you can see like even with all this bending, the leaf and the stem are staying perfectly.
They don't peel off.
Stuck on. There you can kind of see right there. So it stays really nice and lightweight and flexible even while it's still in there. And so even when you're doing like, let's say hand applique, for example, it's extremely easy to pierce the fabric and also go through the instant applique.
Yeah. So this is our raw edge applique example. And now we're going to show you how it works with needle turn applique, which I think is where a lot of people get turned off of applique, is because like needle turn applique is kind of can feel like a difficult technique to approach sometimes. So we're going to, let me keep this on so it doesn't mess up the color, but we're going to go to needle turn applique now.
All right. So like earlier, first what you'll need is some sort of design. So right here, we just have like 5 teardrop shapes plus a little circle for our center later. And so the difference is, I'll first kind of explain it and then show you. So with the raw edge applique, we were able to cut kind of loosely around the shape and then put that onto the fabric and then cut directly on the line. all that's different with the turned applique, turned under applique, is that we're just switching the order of operations a little bit. So,
and actually, because all of these shapes are the same, we actually didn't need to print 5 of the same shape, because on the applique transfer sheet, you can reuse the shapes. So say I wanted to make another apple, I could just stick this applique transfer sheet back onto the Instant Appliqué and cut another apple sticker, essentially. And so, like, if there's shapes that you're using all the time, or you want to reuse shapes, or the motif repeats several times in your pattern, you only need to cut one from the applique transfer sheet, because it's just like a wax backed sheet, so it's just it doesn't lose that
wear. It doesn't. Yeah, you can keep them. Like we have a couple of shapes that we kept to, like this heart here as well. So I mean, teardrop shapes are always like a great one to keep, as well as like circles. So first, what we're going to do is kind of roughly cut out the shape that we want. So I'm just gonna grab. Oops, there we go. So we roughly have this shape. I'm just going to trim some excess over here. All right. So there's our teardrop shape. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is grab your Instant Appliqué. So I'm just going to open up a little. We still have our existing leaf shape that we have rolled up. So I'm just going to snip a little bit of extra over from this side. So we have it open. And what I like to do is, with this shape, I'll just actually stick it straight onto the Instant Appliqué like this. Make sure it's nice and pressed down. Then
this is the difference now. If you're doing a needle turn applique, at this point with the Instant Appliqué and the Appliqué transfer sheet both attached to each other, you want to cut out the shape exactly. Remember when I did the raw edge applique, I just kind of rough cut the apple and stuck that whole piece straight onto the back side of the fabric, and then I cut it, right? But if you're doing this with needle turn applique, you'll want to first cut out the teardrop shape to the exact specifications.
Yeah, so for example, I'm just trimming some excess, like I have some extra sticky on here that I don't want. So now this is just basically like double-sided. It's really on there, as you can see, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to just grab my fabric of choice. I'm using this like really bright one right here. And remember to always put it on the wrong side of the fabric. So let me just make sure everything's nice and center so you can see. So I'm just going to put it right here. And what you're going to do again is you're going to peel off this back side, because we want to keep. Oh, actually,
you have to cut.
Yeah, first. Sorry, I was getting my turned and my raw edge applique mixed up. So sorry.
First, we cut the teardrop exactly.
Yes, first we cut the teardrop exactly. Excuse me.
Yeah,
me and Krista have been switching our techniques kind of back and forth here.
So to be super clear again, if you're doing raw edge applique, you do not need to cut your shape precisely before you stick it on the fabric, because you can do that after it's stuck on already. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but you don't have to. But if you're doing needle turned applique, you will want to cut the shape of your motif exactly first before you stick it onto your fabric. So now that Stephanie has precisely cut her piece, we will now go to the fabric, where she will stick it to the wrong side of the fabric.
Thank you, Calista.
And again, because this shape is symmetrical, it doesn't matter which direction it is. But if you're using a shape that has you're going to be able to tell what direction it is, then you want to make sure you're mirroring your image when you trace it, or when you draw it, or when you print it.
Yes. So right here, I'm just going to peel off the back, expose the sticky like so. And then we're just going to stick it onto your fabric. When you are doing turned applique, and again, different people have different techniques and different levels of experience, but typically we recommend leaving about 1/4 of an inch around the edge for the seam allowance, or if you're more comfortable with applique, you can go down to about 1/8 of an inch. But I would say if you're like beginning, or if this is just more comfortable, definitely leave that 1/4 inch around the edge as you snip. So I'm just gonna grab my fabric scissors and start cutting around the edge here. Oops, there we go.
Yeah.
We always feel a little bit clumsy under camera because we don't get to hold it kind of as close to our face, but I'll clean this up a little. So I'm definitely doing a bit of a wider seam allowance just for demonstration, but you can definitely do something smaller. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit because it's a little bit wide even for me. Okay. So we're just going to round out this edge right here. And then on the corners here, you end up with actually quite a lot of fabric if you think about how it folds over. So usually I like to actually snip off the tip so it's flat like this. And then we can clean up a little bit more too, like so. So there's kind of what we should be left with right here. Then what you want to do next is actually you can just like finger press along the edge.
So before you peel the back, because there's like 2 layers of like a layer of paper and the layer of Instant Appliqué, it's like thicker, right? So at this step, it's easy to finger press where and crease where your folds are going to be. So then it helps you kind of fold it over afterwards when you take off that layer of paper.
Yeah, so you can see that there's a little bit of a crease. The edges are turned up a little bit there. And now what you want to do is make sure everything's nice and stuck. You can actually just peel your top layer off like this. And you can see there's a little bit of a color difference there where that Instant Appliqué is left. And so when you have a bigger sheet, actually, sometimes I'll like leave this on so I can not have to like touch the sticky as much, and I can kind of demo this as well. I'll just like fold back this a little bit and I'll start pressing down. And you kind of have to use your hand feel a little bit here for when you feel the edge of the Instant Appliqué. And you can see it's just sticking right down. But I'm going to remove this so you can see a little bit more clearly. I'll try to bring this up closer to the camera. And I'm just using my thumb and taking really small pieces, especially when you go around the curve. Just like really small bites. And I'm just pushing firmly onto the Instant Appliqué.
So if you're someone that's never tried needle turn applique, this makes it extremely easy because it makes it easier to turn the edges and for those turned edges to stay in place as well. So you're kind of getting like 2 birds with 1 stone with this product.
So right here, this is kind of like what it looks like. And when I flip it over,
you can see how nice the shape looks. It's nice and round. All the edges are turned under and they're staying in place as well, which is going to make stitching a lot easier. So let's go to put this onto our background fabric now.
Yeah, and the nice thing is like the back is still a little bit sticky here. So I'm just going to put this here. I've already done some pieces earlier to prepare. And let me just center everything right there. And so we can place this right here. I know I'm going to have a little bit of a circle that goes on top of here. So it may not be like super precise. If your design is more precise in the center, of course, butt everything up nice and close. And all I'm doing is just giving it a little bit of like another firm press with my hands, and it's stuck.
So now whether you're doing needle turn applique by hand or you're doing it by machine, it's the edges stay turned the whole time while you're doing it, and you don't have to kind of like turn them as you go, and it makes it a lot easier to keep your shape exactly precise and what you want it to be.
Exactly. So I'll show you like this one right here. This one I've already actually stitched down, and so even along the edge, I haven't washed it out yet, but it's all really nice and round. I actually had a smaller seam allowance when I was doing these guys. So this was actually another test piece that I had. And you can see right here that my seam allowance is a lot smaller. So when I'm folding as well, I have to be a little bit more precise. But I will say that I would recommend maybe starting with that 1/4 inch seam allowance if you're just like learning or you're trying Instant Appliqué for the first time, because there's a little bit more surface area for that fabric to stick onto in the back. And then of course, once you're kind of like having all your shapes down, I know I don't have this one stitched down yet, you can layer and add some finishing touches. My little circle here, I actually did it Callista's method, the raw edge applique, because I didn't want to like turn under a circle, like a small circle like this. So this one is just like a raw edge applique. And actually kind of the nice thing too is because the sheets are kind of translucent, if you need to fussy cut some things, it's a little bit easier to place your applique. So once I have this stitched down, I'm just again going to peel off this back. There we go. You can see I'm just going to peel off that back, and then I can just like stitch down this on top of all my petals. And there's kind of like that raw edge applique plus the turned under applique as well. All right. So hopefully that made sense. I would say like if you're just like playing around or practicing, shapes that are really nice to practice on are things like teardrops, or if you have like a heart, because it has something where you can practice folding a corner and also a bit of an innie. So for example, we don't have an innie here, but when you are doing the applique, for example, and you have that 1/4 inch of fabric that you need to turn under afterwards, when you don't know how to approach these areas, sometimes it might be a little bit more frequent on things like flowers and whatnot. All you have to do is imagine I have imaginary fabric kind of here. You want to make a little tiny snip right here so that you can take that fabric and fold it on either side and still get that really nice sharp corner in the middle.
Exactly. And honestly, like if you're doing like really precise shapes, like look how sharp you can make your shapes when you use the Appliqué Transfer Sheet. And as well, like if you don't want to use the Appliqué Transfer Sheet, you could definitely just unroll the Instant Appliqué, cut however much you want, and stick your fabric directly onto this as well and cut whatever shape you want. You don't have to use this. This is more if you have like a pattern or like a design that you're following and it makes it easier.
Yeah, I will say like an important hint really quickly is because it is water soluble and it is like a sticker essentially, right? When you are storing it away, we would recommend making sure that your roll is stuck to itself. It might be a little bit hard to see, but this is where that opening is there. You can see it. We're just making sure it's like sealed and stuck to itself, so it's not exposed to like open air where it can like dry out. That would be important as well for storage.
Absolutely. And I think we just wanted to show also how easy it is. Let's see if we're able to capture this on camera. This is like another sheet that we printed, but say this was like a design that you had on paper, that it would be very easy to put your sheet of Instant Appliqué on top. Another, like pretend this is like a printed sheet underneath.
I'm just gonna center this Calista right here.
And like this is your your transfer sheet on top. It's actually very easy to trace the lines.
And of course, this would be even easier too if you have a light box at home.
Yeah, this is like if you have no light box, but the paper is so thin that it's actually incredibly easy to trace the design out. And I just used a Sharpie here, and it does not smudge. And so that's a great way to transfer designs as well if you have it printed out on paper. This is like an example, like if I had maybe like a design or a shape that I wanted to applique, like again, I can throw this Appliqué Transfer Sheet on top, and you can see how easy it is to trace that cat.
Yeah. And we just have a quick question here about how we would do a point like that with the lemon. I would say the tip of when we had that 1/4 inch seam allowance around the edge, make sure you just like snip it here so it's not like a point like this. You kind of almost want it to have a little bit less fabric here. And I will say as well, what a nice tip is when you are doing needle turn applique is even when you encounter a spot like right here, this is the one that's not sewn down yet. There's a little bit right here of
Extra fabric.
yeah, a little bit extra fabric or a corner. You can use your needle while you're doing your needle turn applique and almost like tuck that edge in, kind of like how you would do needle turn applique regularly. You just have to like finesse the corner a little bit more by tucking it in and having sometimes the 1/4 inch seam allowance as well, and making sure those other sides are stuck on real good helps with that process.
I mean, there's definitely some shapes that are harder than others. So you can take that into account as well when you're going to do your needle turn applique.
Yeah. And also like I want to reassure some of you as well. Let's say that this is your leaf pattern. If this point right here is a little bit hard to do, you can always adjust your leaf shape, right? So it's a little bit more round instead. And a corner like this is going to be a lot easier to turn under. Even a corner like this one up here or a corner like this one up here, these are all going to be a little bit easier to turn under. If your shape has really like acute like points, like very sharp or narrow points, sometimes then we start thinking about like, oh, like can this shape actually just be done with like raw edge? And then your other shapes can be done with needle turn. And we frequently see the blend of these applique techniques even within one project. So these are kind of like hopefully some tips that might help. But I think, I hate to say, but sometimes it takes a bit of practice in order to get these like sharper corners nice and tucked in.
Yeah.
But sometimes it has to do with like finessing the needle and really kind of like pushing the fabric underneath so it's all nice and tucked in.
Yes. The next use that we want to talk about is I have some images on a PowerPoint. So we're just going to bring us back to the main stage, and I'm going to show some images on a PowerPoint. So just give me 1 second while we do that. Let's see. Let's share screen. Perfect. So now you should be able to see this slide that we have here. And it's actually the die lines for a machine embroidery pattern. So this is machine applique. So embroidery applique. So you should be able to put your designs, your embroidery files through. So there's a lot of actually free softwares you can download where it'll allow you to print the die lines for your machine embroidery pattern. So in this case, we printed the die lines mirrored on our Appliqué Transfer Sheet, and we cut them out. And then we stuck Instant Appliqué to the back of these and then put them on the wrong side of the fabric. And I'll tell you how this is going to help you save time. So at this point, when you're doing your machine embroidery applique, you would have your fabric down and your machine would put your placement stitch, and then you can snip away the fabric that you don't need for your machine embroidery. But you don't need to put your fabric down at this point because you can just do your placement stitch, and the shapes that you pre-cut earlier from the die lines of your machine embroidery should fit exactly in those die lines or in that placement stitch. So then you don't have to stitch it, stop, then cut away the excess fabric to continue your machine applique. So you just put your pieces down, you can stick them down, and then you can start doing your machine applique,
and it precisely appliques the edge of your fabric without having to go in with like small scissors and snip out the excess fabric after.
Yeah, and you get a much cleaner design because sometimes it's actually very hard to like trim away
the nooks and crannies.
Exactly, trim away all the excess fabric so you get a really clean design. And that's another hack on how to use the Instant Appliqué as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that is for those of you guys out there that are doing machine embroidery applique.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, like we said earlier, when you use the Instant Appliqué and the Appliqué Transfer Sheet, there's a lot of applications that we might not have even thought of at this point. Like I said earlier, I think about the Instant Appliqué as a double-sided sticker.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes in a pinch, like if I need something to like hold two pieces together, I'll just use the Instant Appliqué to do that.
I think like one of these ideas includes like binding. Actually, it's like a really excellent idea. Mm-hmm. I'm sure like even with...
And zippers. Someone told me they use it for zippers. They just like cut it into strips and like stick it down to like hold the zipper in place.
Yeah, I think the best part is as well is I know sometimes like double-sided tape is a real thing to use in your sewing projects, but the issue is it stays in your sewing project and you have to sew fairly accurately so none of that like double-sided tape is sticking out after. But the nice thing is you can use Instant Appliqué for the exact same purpose, and if you have any part of it sticking out, it just completely rinses away once you've stitched it all down. So I think like binding is actually probably my biggest application for Instant Appliqué, just because like binding's not my favorite thing to do just to begin with, but I feel like Instant Appliqué really helps with the accuracy, even with like the alternatives, which is sometimes pinning or clipping or whatever. The Instant Appliqué really helps keep everything nice and smooth.
Like I was also thinking like non-hoopable embroidery projects. It's like if you're not using like a sticky stabilizer, and a lot of times like it's not my preference to use a sticky stabilizer, you can use the Instant Appliqué because it'll wash out after, and you can like put you can like hold the stabilizer in place, and after it's done, when you wash a project, then that layer gets washed away. And even better if you use the Instant Appliqué with our lace made product, because both of those will wash right out after you're done your embroidery. Or the other day I was like fixing a pair of pants and I wanted to like
repair a hole.
I wanted to repair a hole on like the inside of your thigh, and like I wanted to put like a little bit of fabric on like the inside and a little bit of stabilizer, so I just used the Instant Appliqué to like stick that on the inside, so then I didn't have to like pin or baste anything in place, and then
it's all flush and ready to...
Yeah, it just like all stuck perfectly, so I could like stitch it on the top like super easily.
Make your own fabric with the thread.
Yeah, so I mean there's like honestly a lot of creative ways on like how you can use this product, and I think it's definitely a very handy tool to have in your sewing room.
Yeah, I would say like it's a really big game changer when it comes to applique in general. And you know, before we like start wrapping up, one thing we definitely can't forget to mention is the thread that you use when you're doing applique.
Absolutely,
is extremely important. I'm actually surprised we forgot to mention that at the beginning.
But we got too excited about the Instant Appliqué.
Yeah, it makes applique a lot more fun. But there are like 3 weights of thread that we want to touch on really quick. If you guys have ever watched our Thread Education 101 videos, you'll have an idea of when we talk about like
lightweight thread.
Yeah, our lightweight threads, our lightweight legends, as we sometimes refer to them as. And that's our 60 weight, 80 weight, and our 100 weight threads. And so all of these are in this lightweight category. And the reason why we have these 3 kind of like interchangeable sometimes is, again, sometimes it comes down
personal
preference. But what we really want to like highlight with you all today is the concept of using these lightweight threads to do your applique, especially if you don't want to see the thread. I mean, you can always do like decorative applique where it almost looks like handmade work. But in the case of like really wanting to hide those stitches or maybe making it look really nice, even if it's like the raw edge applique technique and you don't want to see the stitching around it, you will want to go with something that's a lighter weight thread, because it will just like completely disappear into your project even as you're doing like hand or machine sewing. And so even with like my purple petals that I have here, this is definitely not an exact match to any of those petals, but you're really just taking like small snippets of fabric, and you really can't see it even if you're taking a really close look.
And I have some images of this
yeah.
as well. So like Stephanie said, there was like 3 sizes that we were kind of talking about, which is the Afina. So this is 100% cotton, 60 weight. And then the other 2 are cottonized polyesters, Deco Bob and Invisifil. And we've talked about this a lot before, but just like to sum it up really quickly is with cotton, you can only go so fine and still maintain the strength of the thread while making the thread fine. So that's why we have to go to other materials like the cottonized polyester, which gives you the strength, but also can imitate what the cotton can like look like, without jeopardizing like the integrity of the thread to do the project. And the Invisifil and Deco Bob is made for like quilting. Like it won't pucker after you wash it or iron it or anything like that. And it's got more of a matte finish and it's not stretchy at all. So it's a really great thread for a lot of different quilting techniques. But right now we're just talking about applique. And so Stephanie said earlier, it can come down to personal preference. Some people just like the feel of cotton or like the look of cotton. They don't mind that they can see a little bit more of the stitches with the 60 weight. But if you're someone that wants to be like, pristine, totally invisible, then I would definitely recommend going to the 100 weight Invisifil, or some people like the hand feel of Deco Bob, the 80 weight right in the middle. So honestly, it really depends on the person, but all 3 of them, you can't go wrong that they would be fantastic choices for applique. So this is just some machine applique with the Afina, and we've zoomed in close so you can see it still blends in like really, really well.
Do we have the machine applique? Oh, there.
So we're going to start with hand first. So this is hand applique, and that's with Invisifil here. So this is the 100 weight thread. So you can see that it's very, very fine. The seams stay really flat because thread does take up room in your seam. So using a lighter weight thread will give you flatter edges and make your stitches really, really like invisible. And this one is machine applique. So
isn't that incredible?
You can see
this is with Invisifil, and so you can kind of see where that needle hole is almost, but again, this is very, very, very zoomed in.
Yeah.
But like this is just like machine applique, because we also understand hand applique is not always very easy for everyone.
Sometimes it's just not doable for some people too that might not be super dexterous with their hands or something like that.
Exactly, but you can achieve similar looks by even doing something with machine applique and using the right thread like Deco Bob or Invisifil, one of those like really lightweight threads, and still get kind of like that turned under appearance.
Exactly. So this is just the backside, so you can see how tiny
that little zigzag is.
Those little zigzags are. Oh, and then that was earlier. So that's what we wanted to say in terms of the thread is like, if you're looking to do kind of more of that, like you don't really see the stitches type of applique, these lightweight threads are fantastic. Of course, you can still do all these applique techniques and use like heavyweight threads to do the decorative stuff. And right now we do have a bundle. So if you wanted to try, we have the Instant Appliqué plus the Appliqué Transfer Sheet. And you can either choose to pair it with Invisifil or some Afina thread. So you can, like we said, we like to give options because some people like one over the other.
Yeah, and also like me and Calista say this all the time. These two threads are amazing for applique, but I want to make sure that you know that once you get this, this is not limited to only being used for applique.
Yeah.
You can absolutely quilt with these. Afina is a really amazing piecing thread as well. It'll say actually on the box there that it's great for applique and piecing. And Visifil is like an incredible all-rounder. You
Stitch
can
of the ditch, quilting.
yeah, any sort of like EPP, or
yeah.
anytime where you don't want to see the thread, Invisifil's your guy. So I think like if this is something that like piques your interest, I would definitely give it a shot, because even though it says instant applique, and applique is like a major use of this, like we said, you can definitely use this for a multitude of different like project ideas or anything. I'm sure you guys at home can probably even think about like how you attach like two pieces together and how it might be improved by just having a tool like Instant Appliqué
that like holds it temporarily and will wash out after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
and like we said, you can use these Appliqué transfer sheets in conjunction with the Instant Appliqué. This is for sure what you'll need to get if you want to try the Instant Appliqué. This is the companion product to it, and of course we bundled this together on our website. But if you just want to try the Instant Appliqué, this is it. But if you want to print or like transfer the designs like what we were showing you earlier, then I definitely suggest picking some of this up as well. And don't throw away the motifs, because you can reuse these motifs, or like you can use them over and over again. So like you can put them like in a little like, you know, box or something to store them.
And also you can always come back and watch this video for the demos.
Yeah.
But there actually is also a QR code that's on the packaging, so you can always review how to use Instant Appliqué. We also have some written instruction as well on how to use Instant Appliqué. So we want to make sure that you feel like supported and like using this product, because I know applique again can sometimes feel a little bit intimidating, especially if you're wanting to try something new, right?
Yeah.
So again, like if you have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to us. There's so many like great resources on our website as well.
So one question is, would they lose their stickiness? So of the Appliqué transfer sheet? No, because it's like a wax paper and you're putting it on the sticky side. Like if you kept the sticky side open,
like if you kept it exposed,
then it would. It's like a sticker, right? But this doesn't matter. This is just like kind of like a wax lined paper, and it will just stick. I didn't even press it on that good. Let me do that. But like it'll just stick on anything sticky over and over again. So that you can definitely reuse.
You can reuse it there. Yeah. So just make sure that you keep this one nice and rolled up, nice and sealed. If you live in a very, very dry climate, might even be worth to keep it in. It's like there's like a little plastic baggie that comes inside the box. And here, let's take it out. There's like a little bit of a plastic thing. You can just slip it back in the plastic, make sure that it doesn't get dried up. But if it's sealed up onto itself, it'll do a pretty good job of staying nice and sticky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will have these products available at our booth in Quilt Canada. We also have some fun things in our booth besides this.
So if you're making takes, free make and takes.
So. Yeah. So if you want to like get hands-on with some of the products, make sure you swing by the booth for Quilt Canada. I'll be there next week. And if you store this in a box and use it later, it'll be fine.
Yes.
Yeah. You can reuse these. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So we hope you guys learned something new, are excited about this. I think it's like a game-changing product, honestly. If you, like I said at the beginning, if you like love applique, you'll love this. If you don't love applique, maybe you'll love it too, because it'll make
you'll learn to love
it because it'll make applique so much easier. And if you're intimidated, I hope you can see like we're not experts at applique, but like you can see how easily you can like turn pieces under, do your raw edge, and it really like it changes the game for sure.
Yeah, so right here it's still stuck on there nice and tight.
Yeah, and Stephanie just peeled that off
I just peeled it back off of this fabric here.
And then she can stick it back on. So like you can't do that 100 times, but like you can definitely do it a couple times very safely, and it'll like still stick. So
exactly.
let's see it again. And then it's ready to stitch.
Yeah.
All right. So we hope we catch you guys at one of the events coming up or online at our next thread talk. If you guys have ideas for what you want to see us talking about or anything like that,
we take requests very seriously.
Yeah.
So
please leave them in the comments. And if you're not part of our newsletter list, please make sure you sign up because we actually have a free block of the month program for anyone that's on our newsletter list. So
super cute this year.
It's super cute. It's
Coffee
called Coffee Break, and it's a coffee themed.
It's like a shelf.
Block.
Yeah.
So. And actually, it comes in a paper pieced version and a wool applique version. But if you don't do wool applique, you can use the Instant Appliqué and print off the pattern. The pattern
will look like this. So you can really just print off the pattern, and if you don't want to do wool applique,
you can use Instant Appliqué and do it with cotton instead.
Definitely. We saw it last year with our birdwatcher block.
Yeah, some people were already doing that, but it's even easier if you use the Instant Appliqué. Mm-hmm. So awesome. We hope you enjoyed this, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. This will be recorded. You should be able to go back and watch it as well. And we will send a recap video in our newsletter list as well, but it should be posted on our socials. And yeah, thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye.